Well, good afternoon, councillors. We're just past the appointed hour. Our meeting is due to start, so I'll declare the meeting open and welcome you all along to this particularly important meeting of the Gore District Council. We have three apologies today. We have an apology from Councillor Bolger, Councillor Grant, Nick Grant, and Councillor Davis, Nikki Davis. Somebody like to move those apologies be sustained, please? Moved, Councillor McPhail, seconded Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. So we're on to the one item on the agenda, and that is the adoption of the 2021 to 31 long-term plan and consultation document and supporting information that goes with that. So once every 3 years, we have a significant debate around the direction of council for the next 3 years and potentially the next 10 years, and this is the time for that. Councillors will be aware and have been very involved in a number of workshops over the last 12 months looking at some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that we as a community have, and just looking at what is the best and most appropriate way to deal with those. Some of those are ones that we would like to drive ourselves. Some are challenges that are being, for want of a better word, foisted upon us, and I guess there's no better one as an example than to mention the Three Waters project and the reformation that is currently undergoing in that space. And we're not really in a very good situation to be able to ascertain what that might look like at this point in time. Hopefully, over the next month or 6 weeks, that may well become a whole lot more clear, and councils up and down the country will understand more about what the delivery of Three Waters looks like. But certainly, there's a lot of other projects on the go, and we need to just work through those and make sure that we're comfortable with what the long-term plan looks like, and also particularly comfortable about the way that we connect with our community and share the challenges and the opportunities. Because I know councillors will be very aware of the busyness of council at the moment. In my time in local government, it's never been busier than it is right now. And we've got to make sure that we don't let the busyness get in the way of the important projects, and that's what this afternoon is all about, getting us on that journey and taking us through, particularly for the next 10 years. But we have a document that has been presented to us by the Chief Executive, and I'm going to ask Steve, do you want to make any comment before I open this particular item?
Yes, thanks.
Hold it. Yep.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a clarification, it was actually Lornae Straith, the Chief Financial Officer, that prepared the document. So I don't want to steal Lornae's thunder. She's been front and centre of the development of the consultation document. What I would say, in some introductory remarks, however, is that it has been a very challenging assignment this time round. Our auditors have been, to be fair, very exacting in their requirements, and we do have a qualified opinion based around the uncertainty in respect of the age and condition of our wastewater and water network. To be honest, I was a little nonplussed and bemused by that qualification, given that nothing materially has changed, and arguably we know more about these assets than we did 3 years ago. But we find ourselves with this qualification, and clearly there's been a very strong emphasis on Three Waters by the auditors, who are tasked with undertaking rigorous analysis on behalf of the Office of the Auditor General. And when you juxtapose that with the reforms that the government has announced and the uncertainty as to how long the council may be in charge of its own destiny in respect to Three Waters, it makes it for a very challenging process. That, of course, and coupled with last year's very suppressed rate requirement. I believe that the public at large probably need to put this proposed rates increase in context with the very low rate increase of last year. And when you add those two up, you get somewhere close to the 5% threshold that we have self-imposed in our strategy. But again, the auditors did insist that we fully load inflation in year one, and that meant that the rate increase for the first year of the long-term plan is about 1% higher than what the staff had, and the council collectively, had arrived at. But they're just my opening remarks. I hope I haven't been too provocative, Your Worship, and I'll leave it to Lorne to run you through the plan proper.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And my apologies, Lorne. I should have thrown to you there. So I know you've put an awful lot of time and effort into bringing this all together for us today. So look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. As our Chief Executive has mentioned, it has been quite a long process this year. The process started 12 months ago, and I would like to acknowledge the support and work that both council staff and councillors have put into the workshops and us arriving to where we have today. From where we were 4 weeks ago with the last workshop around financial planning and financial strategy, as the Chief Executive mentioned, really disappointed to see that we had gone from a 7.27% increase to an 8.22%. The key factors around that are inflation, and also which has had an impact on how we've looked at our debt repayment. So this is really disappointing for us, because we'd worked hard to get a lower rates increase compared to our fellow councils nearby, who are all have large increases as well. The one point to note is that the adoption today is of the consultation document. So this is what we go out to our public with, to talk to us about the feedback on the issues and what we're proposing. The full adoption of our 10-year plan and a long-term plan does not occur until the end of June. So there is time to make some small tweaks and investigate anything we may need to. So this is a good starting point for our community. Initially, when we looked at our workshops, we had four significant issues. We had the change in the rating area to be one district. We had the water separation. We had the old library, I guess what we're going to do with that, and also the Rural Special Fund. After deliberation with the auditors, we have moved one of our issues into significant issues going forward, rather than being one we want to consult on this time, and that is the one district, one rating area. They want us to do some more work on that before we present it fully to the district. So we will endeavour to work on that over the next 12 to 18 months and present it to the community before the next LTP round. I won't go through the issues individually. We have discussed them at length over several workshops. They are there. As the Chief Executive mentioned about the audit report, it is qualified. It is on the condition and age of our assets, our three waters assets, but it's only on the wastewater and stormwater. One of the mitigating factors for the council in not knowing the age of our assets is the fire that the council experienced in 1957. This destroyed a lot of the records that we had around our assets, and so we have not got the hard evidence to go back to give auditors confidence in the figures. It's not saying their figures aren't correct, it's just that we don't have the confidence. They haven't got the hardcore evidence to back it up. What we are doing to mitigate that, though, is that the Three Waters team have an extensive program of investigation going forward. It has already started with CCTV investigation of our pipes. So we know that going forward into the future, we'll have a better understanding of what our assets look like, and therefore be able to have a more structured renewals program. We'll have a better idea of what we believe will fail when. There's one other small item I wanted to bring to your attention, and again, it was a result of the auditors delaying some of their decision and getting back to us. On page 2 of the memo, a couple of my dates are incorrect, because when I had first drafted it, we were planning to bring this to you last week. Because of the movements, the dates underneath the distribution of the consultation document are incorrect, so they'll be up on Council's website tomorrow, 21st of April, and feedback is open until Wednesday the 19th of May. So just a couple of corrections there. The normal process for adopting the consultation document is that we need to adopt the stream of a raft of reports first. So the financial strategy, the infrastructure strategy, the prospective financial statements, prospective funding impact statements, significant forecasting assumptions, revenue and financing policy, liability management policy, investment policy, and remission of rates policy, and significant engagement policy. So that is the first step of us adopting the consultation document, and then we go into the consultation document itself. But, Your Worship, I'm happy to answer questions from councillors.
Look, thank you, Lorna. Just for understanding and clarity, can I ask Communications Manager Sonia, do you just want to outline the process of engaging with the community with our consultation document, what that's going to look like?
Yes, certainly, through the Chair. What we are doing this year is sending out information with all the rates notices, which go out next week, to alert people of the fact that our 10-year plan consultation document is available and open for feedback. The document itself, a hard copy of the document, will be available at all our usual points, council offices, the library when it reopens, the Pool Visitor Centre and the Matara Service Centre. We'll also, of course, have a project page on our Let's Talk forum, which will have all the documents, including the consultation document, an online submission or feedback form, as well as a PDF form that people can download if they wish to do it in hard copy. And, of course, we'll also carry out publicity through all our usual channels, that being the 2 local radio stations, the Ensign, our social media and Tenno. So we'll touch digital and hard copy in traditional basis.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, councillors, questions, comments around the process and what we're going through? Any thoughts councillors would like to share? Councillor McPhail.
Yes, just one query regarding the rating variance with that inflation adjustment. It may be more pertinent for the CEO, but is that have we struck that before when our auditors have been through and have had that? Like, is it,
Through Your Worship, no, that's the first time I've encountered that.
Okay. So it's obviously it's a change in their practice, not our practice.
Through Your Worship, normally the auditors are very vigilant, and we expect them to be, in relation to inflation, adjusting your figures throughout the duration of the 10-year plan. But in response to the prevailing economic conditions that were upon us 12 months ago, we, in our first year, tried to be as accurate and as clinical as possible in terms of calculating what we needed in inflationary sense for the next 12 months. And the auditor just said that that wouldn't cut the mustard, and we had to load in an allowance for the first year's figures, even though that we were setting them 3 months from when the new year would come into place. So it's the first time that I've encountered that, but in saying that, we were probably being a lot more exacting in our calculations this time around, given the straitened times that we're in and the need for trying to find the lowest possible figure, knowing that we had a lot of pressure upon us at the get-go because we had a very low rate requirement last year.
So there'd be no change in the fact that we've got a 5% set of our preferable rate adjustment, that we need to increase that because inflation is going to be included next time? Like, is it something we need to look at, incorporating it now that the auditors now bring that into their part of their requirement?
Through Your Worship, the auditors were quite happy with years 2 to 10, and they had been inflation adjusted. It's just that we didn't put the full allowance on inflation in year 1, thinking that we could navigate our way through that with a lesser figure, and they weren't happy with that and asked us to put it back in, and that had that 1% effect on rates overall.
No, thank you for that.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hosted.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess I find myself sitting here wondering whose plan this is, in fact. I think auditors are going too far. Like, their role's to identify material risks. So this group and the staff have gone to a considerable effort to minimise the rating impact on our community, only to have the auditors overrule us and impose a 1% increase to rates, which I find totally ridiculous. Then to find out that our one district rating review's being put on ice by the auditors, I find it bewildering. That's not their role. Our role is to lead the community, not an auditor. I think in terms of this 1% rate increase for inflation, we should make a real effort to set that aside and apply it to debt reduction at the end of the term to try and support the community in what we're doing there. We may not achieve that through inflationary pressures. Audit isn't voluntary. It's 1.3% of our rates go to audit fees this year, $231,000. It's out of line. And then to qualify the opinion in relation to the reliability of our underground assets that are 60 years old this year, if we were to factor in a repairs and maintenance assumption or employ a group of consultants even to guide us on that, the rates increase would be double digit. So again, what on earth are the auditors thinking? Like, who do we refer to? It's come from the Auditor General. Can we go further than that and get a bit of sense around this? These are the bunch of auditors that couldn't discover company cars being fraudulently sold in Dunedin, and we're focusing on ridiculous assets here. So I'm disappointed. I think the staff have gone to a real effort to get us a real plan, identify the real issues for our community. It's out there for consultation now. Let's hear back, but yeah, I'd love to hear from the Chief as to where we could go with this audit. And probably in light of our annual plan being qualified around customer service requests, which we voiced our displeasure around.
Yeah, look, certainly I share the sentiments you you make, Brett, in terms of whose plan is this, and there are some very tight restrictions around what councils can do and can't do, and they seem to be becoming more and more stringent as time goes on. And I'd have to say that I haven't experienced, although I haven't had physical contact with the auditors myself, the feedback I've had from staff has been that this has probably been the most strenuous and probably exhausting audit process this council's ever undertaken. And to have that throw up an extra charge that we had gone out of our way to minimise is incredibly disappointing. Look, I think we should make our feelings known to the Auditor General, but I think we also need to be making our feelings known to the Minister of Local Government and government in general. Steve, do you want to make any comment to that?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I would only echo the concerns that it's been the most difficult audit process since I've been involved, which spans quite a few years now. And you do, and Councillor Highstead's correct, you do wonder about the influence of non-elected, non-resident people having on your plan. And it does seem to me that the audit now has taken on a life of its own and a licence of its own to really wade into areas where you're being told, well, that argument's not good enough, or that needs to be repackaged or reworded. Or in the case of the one rating area, it backed out. And all we wanted to do with that one rating area was to say, well, look, this is a concept. We know that it needs some work, but we'd like you to perhaps give us some preliminary views, and we'll come back to you in 3 years with a firm proposal. But the auditors said, no, that's not fit for purpose. It needs to be backed out, put somewhere else in the plan, because they want us to come up with hard and fast rating examples. And we haven't got to that point just yet. We're somewhere in our thinking, but this is where you are, from what I can ascertain, no really good reason you're being told what you can put to the people. And it isn't based around the reliability of information. It's based around personal preference as to what is fit for purpose in a consultation sense. And yeah, that troubles me, to be fair.
And it's I take the point you're making, Steve, and it's not as if the audit history of this council has been a bad one. It's been a very good one, and it's one that we've been proud of through the years. And look, I'm sure that the result of this audit and when it's looked at in hindsight will also be good. But did it need to be this stringent? Absolutely not, in my mind. Councillor Gardine and then Councillor Grant. No, you're not going.
Yeah, good, died. Hello again. A couple of comments. I've got quite a few notes, but the first one was just the Murirai project and the decision there of supplying 362,000 for the second stage of the project. Has that been passed by council or has it just been done in workshop? That was one question. And then just going on, is, on page 77, there's a significant infrastructure decisions as a blank page. There's nothing there. So the auditors missed that one. And then in page 80, there's a decision, options 2 and 3 in page 80 about tar sealing. We just need to look at it. It doesn't actually make sense. One has 23 kilometres and the other has 22, and the budget figures are quite different, of 1.2 million and 1.5 million. The other probably major one is probably going back further down on page 101 is the estimates for the 3 waters and wastewater of close on $320 million, and it's spread over the 50 years. In the budget it shows out, but in reality is whether that's ever going to come to fruition and capacity wise, or whether we have the ability to actually borrow that money to do that work. And really the auditors probably should have noted that and said that, you know, this council probably hasn't got that capacity to do that, and it hasn't been noted, and I think it should be noted, because basically we're just probably relying on, they're just relying on that work being handed over in the 3 waters reform. But to actually no note on it is probably pretty poor.
So,
Yeah.
look, the assumption they're making around that is that we'll still be the owner in 3 years' time. But that's yet to be decided, and nobody really knows.
But
Excuse me.
my point is that it's in there on the budgets to spend the 320 million, and we probably haven't got the capacity to even borrow that money.
And that was deliberately driven.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a comment there, Steve?
Yes, in terms of that 123 million, look, that's the infrastructure strategy has to point out it's 30 years. You've got to state what you believe is the investment, and I've always known that, and I think I'm on record saying publicly, unless we get to some injection of central government funding, issues around the wastewater upgrade that will be required as a result of any renewed consent from Environment Southland and taking on board the national policy statement on fresh water. We are definitely going to need some helping hand. At the start of the LTP, we made the assumption that for at least the next 3 years, we would have 3 waters in our possession. So we've proceeded on that basis, but you're not doing a 10-year plan. The infrastructure area, which I think you're referring to, is actually a 30-year one. And even entering the process with Environment Southland, we are saying, well, we believe we need to get to a certain point. It will require a lot of money to be spent, but it's over a generation, not over the next handful of years. I dare say that 3 waters reform will sort this out one way or the other. In terms of the Murirai Centre, I just can't, my recollection of that issue is that the council approved an increase in its contribution to stage 1 and noted that it would need to increase its investment in stage 2, but hence that's why we're now in the consultation document with the proposal to put that extra money into stage 2.
Okay, Councillor Grant.
Page 80,
And the roading?
yeah, on the roading options, and option 2 and 3. if you read that through, it doesn't actually make sense. The increase of annual resurfacing rates to 23 kilometres per year and the budget by 10% from 1.1 million to 1.2 million over 10 years. And then you go down the bottom one, it's going to go down to 22 kilometres per year, increasing the budget by 10% from 1.5 to 1.27 million in year one and 3% annually. Can we explain that a wee bit more?
Hang on, here you go. I get it. This one. Look, I think you've raised a good point, and we need to get some clarification on that. And we'll put that aside until later in the meeting and just carry on. So, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Heisted's remarks about the audit. Who actually audits the auditor? Is there an audit of the auditor? Is that the Auditor General's office? Is it their job to do that? And if we disagree with them, I mean, why don't can we do a test case against this? I mean, obviously, if it's not going to cost us thousands and thousands of dollars, but just say, come on, you know. I think we should go hard at this because, as Councillor Heisted said, the staff has done a great job of bringing this to this document to here, and we were trying to keep the rates as low as possible, and all of a sudden, is it the same audit team as we have been using for over the years, or is it a new audit office, or is it someone walking in trying to stamp their foot?
It's the auditor that we've been allocated by the Auditor General's office, and that personnel is different to what it has been in the past, but that in their terms that's irrelevant. The personnel should be irrelevant.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, take the point you make. Councillor Dixon, and then Councillor Heisted, did you want to make a comment?
Through you, Worship, I was just wondering if any other councils going through their long-term plan and having the same issues, and whether the local body, government, New Zealand, is picking up on this with the government?
Yeah, look, that same issue has been raised by a number of councils, and as it has been in the past, and I know that Local Government New Zealand have petitioned the audit over the years, and generally the answer is the audit is what the audit is, and we're there to do a job, and this is the job that we're doing. We see some significant risks in this sector, and there's a lot of change happening in this sector, so we want to make sure that everything is right. And I have no qualms with that at all. I think that is right. But when it gets to a point of costing the average ratepayer a significant amount of money, then I do ask that question. So certainly making the point to the Auditor General is an important one. But in the last year, 18 months, there has been a new Auditor General, and he has a slightly different take on life, and I guess that's possibly where this is coming from. Councillor Heisted?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just a comment around Councillor Gardine's question around stage 2 of the Arts and Heritage Precinct. I think that was a deliberate decision of the council to get that into the plan, to get some meaningful feedback on stage 2 in terms of its timing and costs. And just back to this one rating review, you know, a system desperately needs simplified. And if you look at the Three Waters reform and the funding approach taken there, it's very much a one rating approach, it would seem, or one invoicing approach, as it may be. So I guess the question to the Chief Executive is, if we don't proceed with consulting on that now, are we 3 years away, the next LTP, before we can meaningfully engage with the community on that structure. So if that is the case, what can we do to bring that back into life?
Through your worship, I think what we can do is step it out over a 3-year period so that we can perhaps reveal some of our thinking in next year's annual plan. And then with the ability to get some feedback and refine that thinking and possibly the year after, and then have a final model in the LTP in 3 years' time. Because it's now in the consultation document, that's a concept that we intend to develop. So I think we can actually publish our thinking over the next couple of years in annual plans.
Okay. Other comments or questions? You're pointing at someone?
I think Lorna was.
Oh, sorry, Lorna, I missed you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, there's one of Councillor Gardine's comments that I'd like to address,
Yeah.
and it was around the affordability. That was a discussion that we had with the auditors, and again, it was in an area of disagreement between ourselves and the auditors. Their argument is that we have the ability to rate higher than our 5% self-imposed cap, that it is our decision to have the self-imposed cap, and therefore we can move that and hence rate our ratepayers even higher. Their other argument was that we can become a credit-rated council and borrow up to 250% of our revenue. And again, I know that having worked here, the council is mindful of our constituents, of our ratepayers, and of trying to ease the burden on them. So this is again was something that we disagreed with them on, and you'll see notes throughout the consultation document saying that there are avenues for us to fund some of these activities. But we did put our foot down on that and said we do not want to exceed our self-imposed limits for a reason, for a very, very good reason.
Okay. Councillor Gardine, did you want to make a comment? Okay. Councillor Highstead.
Sorry to go again, Your Worship, but just a question around the liability management policy. I believe personally that audit and risk need to have another look at this. I realise we have to adopt it tonight to move forward, but can we make a technical submission at a future date to make an amendment? And I'm referring to the interest rate bands. You know, the market has changed significantly since we last did that, and our hedging policy is forcing our advisors to advise us to take positions that I don't think are necessarily right. Personal view, but it would be great to get audit and risk to have a look at that.
Certainly the ability for a technical submission would be there, absolutely. And just in terms of accountability of the Auditor General, the Auditor General is ultimately accountable to Parliament. So that's who he reports to. He doesn't report to us or anybody else. It is Parliament. Okay. Other questions, comments? And I know over the next little while there'll be a lot of debate, a lot of interest in this document, and Council will need to determine its way forward when we get to the point of adopting the long-term plan. But the role tonight really is to adopt the consultation document to make sure that we can get that out and engage the public. So is there any other particular questions at this point in time, John?
Just at page 77, with the significant infrastructure decisions, there's nothing there. Just, is there meant to be something there, or is it just a blank?
Lorna, do you want to make a comment to that?
Your Worship, I'll throw that to my counterpart, the General Manager of Infrastructure, given it's the infrastructure strategy.
So I could not understand the question.
On page 77, Ramesh, there's a figure 2 is significant infrastructure decisions. There's nothing there.
So
It's blank.
in infrastructure strategy, the document, it does say about significant infrastructure decision. I don't know which report has been, I was not party to this report.
Okay, so look, I think Steve can probably...
Yeah, Your Worship, I don't have the exact answer. I can see that certainly the wording on those two options is a little askew, and there will be a schedule of significant projects. What I suggest we do, because Mr. Stannering's not here, is that you adopt the strategy subject to the wording changed in options 2 and 3 on what is my page 80 in the electronic agenda, and that the schedule is provided, and that can also be provided via a technical submission, although that would be only for the record. My strongest recommendation is that we put it into the strategy proper, so it's out there for the people to note right from the get-go. So I've actually read the strategy, but I'm pretty sure the version I read didn't have a blank page. I would have asked the question.
Exactly, it was the same thing. How it disappeared, I don't know.
Lorna?
Looking at the document further, this is a formatting issue. It's purely a formatting issue. It's on the next page.
So what it's referring to is on the next page. Okay. Thank you for that.
But the wording still is the wording still.
Is a formatting.
78 is issues, 77 is decisions. Yeah.
So so Lorna, you're saying that this is simply a formatting issue and will be reflected in changes going forward?
Yes, we'll have a look and make sure, see whether that's what it is. I will refer to the General Manager of Infrastructure and we will work through this together to...
Okay. Right. Okay. Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to make mention of the remission of rates policy. I know that there'll be some concern in the community given the rate increase, but I just would encourage the ratepayers to investigate the rates rebate scheme and not to be put off by the fact that it does actually have a limited amount that you qualify for, because it is a sliding scale and people can actually get a partial offset of rates as well. So I think that's important going forward as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like it's always an important factor that should be taken into account, and I'm not, I stand to be corrected here, but my understanding is we've never really had a community that's taken that to its fullest extent. So if you think you may, or if the residents think that they may qualify for some sort of remission, then it's pretty important that they ask the question of council, and there will be some user-friendly staff available to work through that. And I know that it may be a challenge for some people around privacy, but certainly our practice in the past is to make sure that it is an absolute private conversation with an individual of the staff, and that goes no further, but they can give the resident a good steer on what is the best deal for them in terms of remission.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd also note that our communications officer roundabout rate time does always have something, and it's also on our council Facebook page. Not Facebook, sorry, just the council website.
Yeah, okay. Righto. So any other particular issues that councillors want to raise at this point in time? And I think we need to bear in mind the potential formatting issue around the major projects in any resolution we pass now, but I do have an assurance that that will be sorted pretty quickly. Any other issues councillors wish to make? Okay. Okay, so I think we're at that point then when we do need to adopt the consultation document and the supporting information so that we can engage with our community. And we have a recommendation there that I think covers all of those issues. Is that right?
Yes,
okay. Right. So would somebody like to move that recommendation, please, so we can engage? Councillor Highstead, seconded Councillor Reid. Thank you. Is there any discussion on that? There's not. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. This is a significant step in the life of this council and also in the life of councils yet to come. So it is very important that a conversation with the community is undertaken in as a constructive manner as possible, and that we get to the point when we adopt this long-term plan that it is going to serve the best interests in the long term of this community. So thank you, councillors. My understanding is there is no further business to be transacted today. This was a one-item agenda. So I'll thank you for your attendance, thank you for your input, and declare the meeting closed. Thank you.